The new Poco flagship is here, F4 GT. It is super fast, super smooth and with quite awesome camera stack. But how about these gaming triggers and the ultra-fast battery charging? Let's inspect. Hi everybody, good to meet you, Michael here, Tech4O. We inspect some fresh and cool tech here, and I'm really happy that once again we have the chance to try out a new smartphone. This is a Poco device, and you probably know that Poco belongs to the large Xiaomi family. And Poco themselves, they have 4 different product lines, with the F series being their most premium line. But I need to underline, they don't really do any premium smartphones. This is something that is supposed to be a flagship killer grade, and this year apparently Poco have strengthened their positions about creating a nice gaming-oriented smartphone. This is the F4 GT, and the most remarkable part of it are those shoulder triggers, which not only are great for gaming, but also could be used as alert slider, something that OnePlus have famously implemented in their product line. This here costs $599 and packs a lot of flagship-grade features. So, in this video we're going to start with the specs and the gaming performance, then take a look at the camera, then the battery features and endurance, and we're going to wrap up with the software goodies so that you have a good idea about how it measures up against other, a lot more expensive gaming phones. At the time I work on this review, Asus ROG 6 is not available yet. Red Magic 7 is here, however, but surprisingly it can't be the Poco F4 GT about price. And let's be honest about it, most flagships these days can also be good about gaming. But I think Poco may have discovered the perfect balance and therefore niche. So let's unbox. There are 3 colors to choose between. The box on the outside is regular, looks as good as the packaging for the M and the X series, which are cheaper, and most other Xiaomi-made devices this year anyway. So there's nothing special or extraordinary fun about it, but still being solid is good enough. Some documentation as a starter, as well as a protective case. Since OnePlus and some other brands started to add some fun-looking creative cases, I tend to criticize the choice of protective transparent silicone case here. Just doesn't match the nature of this phone, which is clearly flagship-grade device. So here's the Poco F4 GT in its full glamour. This is the so-called night silver, and I admit it looks quite nice. The choice of color gives you the feeling that you hold an all-metal body, and the feeling is nice, but that's not all metal. The most unusual add-on for the Poco F4 GT are these shoulder triggers. If you're a gamer, you probably can't wait to try them out. If you're not, there are 2 main functions you can take advantage of, at least, which I noticed during testing. A stress reliever. The feeling of moving them left to right is so satisfying. Shouldn't do any harm since Poco promise they can last more than 1.5 million times to be triggered. If you do this within a second, 1.5 million times will convert into more than 17 days uninterruptedly doing this. So I doubt you're going to exhaust these in a lifetime. The back shows the gaming nature of the phone but doesn't necessarily scream about it, so I find the Poco F4 GT to be a great match to everyone looking for the following specs pack. A 6.67-inch AMOLED display with up to 120Hz refresh rate, covered by Gorilla Glass Victus. There's the famous Snapdragon 8 Generation 1 with liquid cooled technology 3.0, DDR5 RAM 8 or 12 gigs, UFS 3.1 storage with up to 256 gigs capacity, a 4700 mAh battery with the monstrous 120-watt charging, a 64-megapixel main camera accompanied by an ultra-wide and a macro module, a specially designed X-axis linear motor and Dolby Atmos certified quad speakers. From all these specs, there are a few things to highlight, and I'm switching to this smartphone as a daily driver from Xiaomi 12 Pro. I'll probably come back because of the better camera. So here, the cooling is a lot better, both realistically but also based on theory, because Poco are advertising their much larger vapor chamber setups, which is supposed to be a lot larger surface than what other vendors are using in their smartphones, and I can confirm that this Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 is a bit cooler as compared to most of the competitors. Also, the charging, it's totally flagship grade, and it can charge the phone's battery up to full within less than 20 minutes. But more remarkably, you can charge while you're gaming, and therefore we have this L-shaped cable, because when you connect it, it wouldn't disturb you while you're gaming, and even under heavy stress, the battery can be charged for less than 30 minutes. Just want to remind you that the S22 Ultra is going to require more than 1 hour and 15 minutes. The iPhone 13 needs around 2 hours. Over here, a few times less than that. Also, the heat disposal during charging is quite good. Most of the heat you're going to feel here in the area around the camera, but that doesn't make the gaming experience any worse. In terms of the CPU stressing, because I tried to throttle the CPU at some point, it started to go down in terms of frequency around the 7th minute, and it lost around 30% of its full efficiency, and it has been a bit heavily struggling after the 9th minute, where I noticed drops down to between 55 and 65% of its total power. For regular activities, phone calls, messaging, social media, browsing, listening to music, that phone feels great, totally enough, and I'm sure it's going to be future-proof for at least another few years. When it comes to browsing, one thing I noticed is slight stuttering that you can feel with Google Chrome. I didn't notice it with other browsers, but I'm not really sure if here the problem is with the MIUI software or with Google Chrome itself, and I guess only time can show about that. Also, the animations are very different as compared to other MIUI-based devices. I like that. It's a positive change, in my opinion. As for gaming, the experience is totally awesome because the speakers here are tuned by Harman Kardon, but you count on totally 4 of them, with probably one of the most remarkable ways to reproduce bass. So if you ask me which is my favorite feature, I would say just hear about this sound. The camera, which as usual is among the biggest topics for smartphones, Poco played safe here with the IMX686. That's a 64 megapixel sensor backed by rather bright optics. It lacks optical image stabilization, which you will mostly feel in low light photos or during filming videos, but the image processing is quite decent, usually creating very crisp and fresh-looking photos, especially very small light in the scene. Daytime photography is, as expected, very good. Indoors, quality degrades, and at night, if you use the dedicated night mode, things are rather alright. Performance of the main camera is clearly not 2022 flagship grade, but will do fine in most scenes. The MIUI camera app, which is used as a default here, is excellent for helping you to fine-tune your photography and even to bring it to the next level, thanks to the many professional-grade options, multiple shooting modes, and creative filters. The IQ in this camera app is pretty high, so image processing is on the better side. There's a second ultra-wide-angle camera with 8 megapixel OmniVision sensor, which is simply not that great. Especially in low light, it suffers a lot. But we anyways prefer to use ultra-wide mode in daytime, so these are the results to be expected. If you play around with the app, you're gonna notice the readily available double zoom feature. It doesn't mean there's a telephoto camera though, it's just a software dual zoom shortcut. So the third image sensor is about macro. Yeah, it's a 2 megapixel macro camera, which I can classify as rather useless. These few dollars that Poco have spent on integrating it, they should have used them for adding optical image stabilization or something else to cheer us up. As you may agree with me, a cropped photo from the main camera looks better than a dedicated macro shot. As for video, here's something captured with the main camera, with stabilization being surprisingly good for just electronic-based, and here's the camera in low light, where you're going to notice a lot more artifacts because of the lack of OIS. So the front camera is a bit narrow, but obviously has some sort of image stabilization. It's all electronic image stabilization. Actually a pretty good sensor which is being used there. Therefore, we have a fairly good dynamic range. And here the point is to try out this smartphone for vlogging. So let me know how it feels. Quick spin so that you can see at better lighting what happens behind me. And please, in the comments, let me know what you think of the front camera, but also what you think about the inbuilt microphones. How about the rest? Among the key strengths here, the charging speed. The included inside the box 120-watt charger is the same as the one for Xiaomi 12 Pro, and in less than 20 minutes it's gonna get the job done up to 100%. The discharge speed is less attractive though, lasts almost as much as Xiaomi 12 Pro, with standby times not being that great and consuming quite a lot of energy when under heavy stress. It is Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 to thank about this. As typical for Poco phones, no wireless charging. The connectivity side is also on par with what you may hope to find here. Current generations of Bluetooth, NFC, 5G. Note that most US bands may be missing due to the availability of the phone mainly in Europe and Asia. Wi-Fi support is up to generation 6, however no 6E is present. The operating system feels also great. Unlike the cheaper models, there is almost no bloatware and no ads. Clean interface, fast loading of apps, a lot of customizations, the themes engine, a lot of features that you won't find with other Android skins. Important to note that Xiaomi started to be very consistent about software updates lately, and there even are some customizations about the nice-looking LED function around the camera. It's a gaming phone in the end of the day. So everything that you like from the Android world is here at its latest version, but also if there are things that you don't like about MIUI, it's also present with the Poco F4 GT, which is a good moment to start talking about the drawbacks. And here's the biggest one, at least in my kind of usage. I was totally annoyed by this alignment of the recent menu. That's been a standard for Poco phones for quite many years, and it's because of the Poco launcher. So at the beginning I was stuck with this and was pretty irritated. Good news, there is a new edition of the Poco launcher, so if you install it, which is version 4 of the Poco launcher, you can magically get a switch inside the settings. When you go to home screen, there's the menu arrange items in the recent menu, and you can select the old-fashioned, the Android default way to group them horizontally, which has been finally a bliss. There is no wireless charging, the fingerprint sensor is inside the power button, which I don't like, no optical image stabilization, poor macro camera, no Wi-Fi 6E support, and surprisingly, if the triggers are not closed, you may actually hear them while typing because they're loose. Here's the summary in a nutshell, and I remind you that I've switched to this daily driver from Xiaomi 12 Pro, so I can easily compare and say that performance-wise for daily tasks, kind of the same. In terms of camera, not as good but acceptable. In terms of charging, it is better because here we have a dual-cell battery and it charges a little bit quicker. Fingerprint capturer on the back side and no wireless charging. And in terms of gaming, probably it's a bit better than the competition because of the more efficient cooling. So I would say I mostly enjoyed these shoulder triggers because I've configured the top one to be going to silent mode and the other one to turn off the torch and turn on the torch, and that's been a very good productivity enhancer. And after OnePlus and apparently the iPhones, this is the only other phone that I can think of which can go into silent mode without you having to power on the display. That's pretty cool. So in the end, I think for the budget, this is the best buy you can think of when it comes to Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 based solution. It does have its shortcomings, like the not so great camera, the lack of wireless charging, and a few other little things, but overall, that's an amazing pack at the even more amazing price of $600 for that kind of tech. Or possibly you might have some other ideas, so I dare you to keep on the conversation in the comments below. Of course, if you have some other follow-up questions, I'll be glad to join in and help there. As usual, links to this phone and all the other products we've seen throughout the episodes, somewhere in the video description. Thank you very much for being with me till the end. Hopefully useful and entertaining, and if that's the case, think about following us here on YouTube and any other social media channel. That's everything for today. I'm Michael and really look forward to host you again in our next episode. Bye!